Food and drink have always been a fascination of mine. Growing up poor, I didn't have access to what some might call the finer things in the culinary world. Food was very much a means of survival. Takeout was an infrequent treat, and trips to real restaurants were a special occasion. So, as an adult, I took a real interest in food and drink. I worked in local cafes, bars, and bakeries. I even formally studied enology. I wanted to see that side of the world, and subsequently, hoped to feel a bit more connected with those around me. Food is a cultural centerpiece. It brings people together and facilitates some of our most cherished memories. But if you're a certain food critic, food can be the catalyst of conflict, controversy, and sex change metaphors? Who is Lily Contino? Lily, who I will be addressing using she/her pronouns, is a transgender woman in her late 30s, a TikTok content creator, and self-described transgender food critic. Lily's videos are often centered around restaurant meal reviews, transgender-themed lifestyle vlogging, or a combination of those two subjects. They often feature minimal editing and are frequently posted as long-form content on her YouTube channel alongside curated snippets for TikTok. Lily Contino is a name you probably don't recognize, but I'd be willing to bet that you've seen at least one of her infamous TikTok videos.
Looks like he's having a nice feast.
She, her.
Yeah,
It's okay. It's all good.
But it was not all good.
Lily is someone who likely never should have risen to prominence online. By all accounts, she is a rather unremarkable person in terms of the quality of content that she creates. And any sense of charm or magnetism that she may possess is frequently undercut by her consistently abrasive interactions with pretty much everyone around her. And her aesthetic is often quite jarringly juvenile, despite the more gritty adult topics she tends to discuss. A staple genre that she engages in posting is what I'll call educating the cis, where she provides example scenarios meant to inform her viewers on trans identity, or what transphobia can look like, for example. On the surface, this all sounds well and good. It's useful to provide people with information that will help them to understand and empathize with people unlike them. This, on paper, is a net positive for society. Despite this, Lily's videos are met with hostility. Let's explore a sample of her content together and see if we can maybe pick up on some of the threads that the more aggressive members of her comment section are hooking into.
Let's say that your imaginary coworker Beth just came out as a transgender woman who uses she, her pronouns. Let's also say that her dead name, or the name you used to know her as, was Brian. One day, you, Beth, and Steve, another coworker, go out for drinks to meet a new client. But Steve accidentally introduces Beth as Brian and says he instead of she. Dang it, Steve, you misgendered and dead named Beth. This is not cool for a couple of reasons. First, and most importantly, you hurt Beth's feelings. Also, Beth now either has to be Brian to these new clients, which is super uncomfortable, or out herself as transgender, which is something no one should have to do. So you're standing there and this happens. What do? Lean In recommends responding with a quick correction. Hey everyone, Steve made a mistake. He actually meant to introduce you to Beth, who uses she, her pronouns. From there, Steve should give a quick but sincere apology and move on. There's no need to get defensive or over-apologize, because that might lead to Beth feeling like she needs to comfort Steve for his mistake. And look, we're only human. Hopefully this helps Steve or anyone who's ever misgendered a trans person to be more mindful of names and pronouns next time.
That was a useful little anecdotal story, and a purposely light start on my end of things. This is a common scenario that people may find themselves in when either dealing with trans people and getting used to the new identity of someone they know, or going through transition themselves. Personally, I would have gone with something a bit lighter, like, I think Steve meant to call her Beth, and quickly usher the conversation along in a different direction. The sort of announcement-style correction offered by Lily in this scenario only serves to point a spotlight on the misgendering to embarrass Steve, and it isn't really low-key. Like, if someone accidentally introduces a cis woman with the wrong name in a conversational setting, we wouldn't announce to the group that Steve made a mistake. It would be treated sort of like a funny haha brain fart, like how did that happen? The fact that Lily called this announcement, this break from the conversation's flow that shines a spotlight on the person in question, a quick correction, may prove indicative of how Lily handles similar situations in her own life. Now, the comments on this video are, well, a bit harsh, First, let's not ignore the elephant in the room. It certainly won't stop stomping. There's a lot of transphobia directed at Lily in these comments, but that's boring right now, so we'll circle back to that later when it's not so boring. What I really want to hone in on, though, is that last comment about dragging out the apology. See, dear viewer, this is where Lily's definition of a quick correction becomes relevant. In instances where Lily is accidentally misgendered on camera, she frequently pulls out her unofficial catchphrase, "It's like a knife to the heart," or some variant thereof.
Hi, I use she, her pronouns. I'm not sir. Yeah, like it's like a knife in the heart. I'm so sorry. I apologize. It's just always like a knife. It always hurts every single time. Just like, it kind of just hurts a lot to get called sir. It is a knife in the gut when I get called sir.
If I'm to be perhaps a bit too honest about my thought process, I think that a big personal reason why this rubs me the wrong way is that it projects weakness. I don't want people to hear that misgendering is like a knife to the heart or gut or whatever, because I don't want the transphobes in Lily's audience to be further encouraged to harass Lily or other trans people by her frequent dramatic confirmations that it hurts to be misgendered. And when you look through her comments, you can see that her audience has caught on to this fact. I wanted to add that, divorced from this specific context, I actually think that appealing to empathy and another person's humanity is a really good way of attempting to convey one's lived experiences and the emotional consequences thereof. It's just the specific context of this being a filmed and uploaded interaction to specifically an audience of majority transphobes where it becomes a problem for me. It's like giving a group of burglars the keys to your house. I don't know, girl. These kinds of emotional admissions to waitstaff probably aren't fully necessary to begin with, and they definitely don't need to be converted into content for your TikTok audience consisting of either trans people who already know that being misgendered sucks, or transphobes who cream their jeans just a little bit every time they imagine our suffering. From what I could see in the full clips, a lot of the servers seemed genuinely remorseful. Not all of them, but like a lot of them. The formula for these misgendering encounters is as follows. Lily gets misgendered, Lily offers a genuinely quick correction, then the minimum wage service staff member who may or may not be present on camera apologizes, sometimes even profusely, and then Lily hits him with the old, "It's like a knife to the heart." It's awkward and, real talk, it's extra. You're doing way too much. Lily's propensity toward dramatics is what got her to where she is today. The videos of her being misgendered and reacting in her signature awkward, drawn-out, and theatrical manner were the entire reason why her TikTok blew up a few years back. This admittedly grating trait of Lily's became a focal point in both discussion and criticism of her. Of course, that doesn't mean that Lily never faces malicious and intentional misgendering in her videos. Here's an example of one situation that might be a little bit more intentional than the waiter's letting on.
Thank you. I'm not sir. Not sir. Not sir.
As you just saw, sometimes the intentionality of the people who misgender Lily during her videos can be fairly ambiguous. Did he not understand her? Is it a language barrier? Or was he just being a dick? It's that plausible deniability that the confirmed transphobes in Lily's comments would weaponize against her. Of course, sometimes even plausible deniability wears thin, and it's impossible for a rational actor to deny the transphobia in front of them.
Is it a 10 out of 10, sir? I have those exclusive.
Oh, would you like to show your faces?
Yes.
Okay.
How is it?
First off, you called me sir, right?
Oh, I meant to say man. That's
Oh, no.
What are
Oh,
your
okay.
pronouns?
No, okay.
What are your pronouns?
She, her.
She, her. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know.
What's your name?
I don't have a name. My name's
There we go.
Caesar.
Oh, wait, one more time? I didn't catch that. See you, sir. Those are kids who knew exactly what they were doing. No, they're not ignorant, Rockton. They're hateful. There's a difference. Hate is learned. They deserve for that video to be seen by the world.
Okay, most obvious thing first. Clearly, those boys suck, and I think to deny this fact, you would have to be one of those empathy is for losers types. You know, one of those terminally online Elon dick riders with a browser history that would make Gerald Fogel blush, but I digress. Now, I have some other feelings. Feelings about Lily's part in this little encounter. Lily, girly, why did you post this? I'm not asking because I think those boys were in the right. They knew who she was when they approached her. You can tell because of the specific ways in which they packaged their shitty comments toward her. They knew she was a food reviewer, they knew she was trans, and would respond negatively to being called sir. And the one guy's attempt at self-promotion indicates that he probably knew that the video was either live, or it was going to be posted later on for everyone to see. Lily fed into this, giving them the attention and the reaction that they craved. All that her video really accomplished was providing a proof of concept that transphobes can find and harass Lily in real life, which isn't that hard given that she live streams for several hours at very public restaurants, the names of which she provides during her live streams. That video we just watched was one of Lily's more recent TikTok videos, so I wouldn't be surprised if we began to see more of this real-life trolling take place in her streams going forward. Admittedly, I haven't been up on all of the Lily streams. It's very hard for me to want to sit down for like an hour and listen to her speak. I have a hard enough time sitting through her 15-second TikToks, so for all I know, this is something that happens more frequently, but I imagine given the sort of basis for her content thus far, if this was happening, we probably would have known about it through her TikTok clips. Future cake right here. That part of the script was recorded before I knew everything I know now, and it definitely contributes to why I felt the weird pit in my stomach that I describe later. Turns out, Lily is the master of the dirty delete. I actually have one other fairly major note about how she dealt with this scenario. Lily firmly asserted that what she experienced was hate. It was not ignorance, but specifically hate, because this, like hate, was a learned behavior. I actually quite strongly disagree with her here. I think that the act of going to a trans person in public and harassing them is a hateful act, but I knew a lot of edgy teens when I was growing up. That 4chan brain rot ran fucking deep in my generation. And a lot of people I consider friends these days could have conceivably done things similar to this back then. Not saying I hung out with people who actively harassed trans people, I'm just saying that young people fundamentally lack empathy. And these people I know, thankfully, grew out of this behavior. They never hated the people they mocked. They mocked them because their stupid baby brains saw that there was social capital to be gained in this specific targeted form of mockery, and so they acted accordingly. A bully doesn't always hate their victim. They're usually ignorant to their victim's humanity, and perceive a social benefit in signaling that ignorance. And in this case, Lily surely gave them a more than satisfactory response for them to reap that social capital. The majority of my issue with her behavior in this scenario is that she made the conscious decision to immortalize this encounter by featuring it on her TikTok. This was a choice that she made after the encounter had ended and after she had time to think about it. Keeping that video up is a choice she makes every single day, though honestly, she might as well just leave it up since the damage is so very much done by this point. Chapter 2. Food, Metaphors, and Censorship. Okay, we have to talk about the cake pops. This part gives me the ick. So, I guess content warning for like this entire section, probably like this entire video going forward. You'll be hearing a lot of references to genitals and genital surgery spoken through metaphors about cake pops and banana splits and whatever. Enjoy.
I'm dating someone who turned their cake pops into a donut. This donut is breaking, but you get it. She's about 6 months out from surgery, and she's at the point where she can comfortably serve her donut. And the process of figuring things out has been a lot of fun for both of us. Her donut can feel a pretty wide range of sensations, but it'll be a few more months before she can cross the finish line. But even now, her donut looks and feels incredible. You'd have a tough time knowing it was ever a cake pop to begin with. I can also confirm that the donut does self-glaze, though sometimes we add a little bit of extra glaze just to be sure. And since the donut hole is a little bit on the smaller side right now, extra glaze can be helpful as we work up to getting a full cake pop stick to fit inside.
Even more than her knife to the heart shtick, a hallmark of Lily's videos is turning delicious treats into traumatizing metaphors for her and her partner's genitals. No sweet is spared this sour fate. On a totally unrelated note, do you like delicious glazed donuts? Don't worry, the suffering is worth it, I assure you. I actually am building toward an actual prescriptive statement for the second part of this chapter, but first I want you to enjoy this video of Lily eating a banana split. As was the case in my previous video though, which you should totally check out after this, I'm going to first give you a moment to recover while I discuss today's sponsor, my merch shop, baby! Yeah, that's right, I got merch. I got so much merch, just kidding, I have like one merch. How do you quantify it like that? One merch? I like to design things, little logos, graphics, whatever, so this was a lot of fun to work on. Definitely cut into my video production time, but honestly worth, even though I haven't sold any. If you want to support the channel, and maybe you just want a new shirt that you can like chill in, definitely consider checking mine out. Otherwise, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, all the good things. Ringing that bell, super important to make sure that you can see when I actually post new videos. I am still a pretty small content creator, so my stuff will more frequently get drowned out by the algorithm. Anyway, thank you for listening to the plug. Okay, banana split jump scare time.
I am finally getting my banana split later this year. I talked to my surgeon on the phone, and this is how he's going to do it. Step 1 is, of course, to split the banana. Inside the banana, we find a small tube of red licorice. You know this tube. It's the one that transports caramel sauce and frosting. We're actually going to shorten this tube, and I will show you why later. Next up, we're going to move our way back to the ice cream bag that is holding the 2 maraschino cherries, and we're going to remove them. I already had mine removed last year, but if I hadn't, they'd be removed now. Next up, we're going to remove the innards from the banana so that it's basically just a hollow tube. Now that we have our tube, we need to flip it inside. Inside will be played by this butternut squash. As you can see, the tube of licorice that we cut is right here. You can see why we wanted it about this short. In order to flip our banana tube inside of the butternut squash, we must first make room in the butternut squash. So let's make some space. There we go. Finally, we can flip our banana tube inside of the butternut squash and let it heal. Healing can take up to a year, but really I'll be on my feet after a few months. And yes, this is very messy, but it's also very...
See how good that looks? How it looks like something you probably would never do?
I'm sorry. That was like impressively graphic for a metaphor using food, but it's also the last one we'll watch. She had that like licorice whip in there and everything. It's certainly a
Creative
choice, but let's get into why it was the choice that Lily made and how this relates to her audience's unfavorable perception of her. Unaliving, smecks, droogs, sewer slide. Long ago, the 4 expletives lived in harmony. Then everything changed when the evil, liberal, Chinese censorship, big tech, deep state nation attacked. Okay, not really. It happened before that. Maybe it was the Puritans of the Elizabethan era who censored... wait, nope. I mean, yes, they did push for a great deal of censorship, but this rabbit hole goes way deeper than protecting little Elizabethan ears or whatever. We've been censoring expletives since time immemorial. King Rhadamanthus, which I know I mispronounced, but you don't know how to say it either, a figure in ancient Greek mythology, was believed to have forbidden swearing by the gods. So, what this means is, this mythological king forbade people from saying "by the god," and instead offered alternatives, such as "by the goose," or "by the dog," depending on the specific context. I guess it caught on because later major religions, such as Christianity, adopted the ideal of never taking the Lord's name in vain, which, in its original context, was meant to bar people from swearing upon God's name that they were speaking the truth when they were in fact lying. It was to prevent them from misusing an oath to their deity, and consequently to preserve the sanctity and weight of such an oath. This is, in a historical precedent sense, why things like sewer slide and gosh darn it are used in polite company or professional settings, rather than the terms we really mean when we say them. These minced oaths, as they are called, have been a baked-in element of language for a very long time, though in their original context they arguably had more of a practical spiritual usage, as opposed to just being used to not say a thing because it's impolite to say the thing you're actually low-key saying. So why does all of this matter, and how does it relate to Lily's terminal unlikability? I'm glad you asked. What if I told you that Lily's usage of cake pops and various otherwise delicious treats as a euphemism for her discussions on transgender anatomy is a direct byproduct of a legacy of queerphobia and puritanism? I mean, don't get me wrong, she still chose the specific euphemisms she put into play here, but the fact that these very gritty and often difficult to discuss topics are being filtered through this sort of trivializing and infantilizing language is largely due to censorship requirements on platforms like TikTok and YouTube. As Lily appears to be a full-time influencer, she has to be cautious of how directly she speaks on these touchy subjects. Censorship is used to protect polite society from an ever-changing list of terms deemed improper or profane. Different eras and cultures will have different lists of no-no words, and these lists are generally reflective of those eras' struggles and virtues. A puritanical culture might emphasize a blockade on terms relevant to nudity or sexuality, while a multicultural culture will label racially divisive terms like slurs as more profane. That said, if the existing power structure determines that words specifically pertaining to the queer experience are profane and offensive because of their adjacency to what is considered by some to be deviant sexual behavior, suddenly you create a chilling effect on queer people's ability to openly discuss their experiences in an accessible and serious manner. This is systemic discrimination on a deeply fundamental level. This goes double for discussions of queer anatomy, as anatomically accurate terms are so frequently seen as profane due to how broader society correlates discussion of sexual anatomy and acts of explicit sexualization. This targeted censorship is not exclusive to queer people, of course. I mean, just look at how a white-dominated society labels things typically associated with blackness as profane. I mean, those mother flippers convinced like 4 generations and counting that rap music as a whole was super heckin' vulgar or trashy, to such an extent that even today, when you ask your average white griller what music they listen to, they will very often make a point of saying that they don't listen to rap. It wouldn't be polite to listen to rap. By saying this, the interlocutor in question is telling you that they have protected their virtue from such vulgarities. They have engaged in an act of self-censorship. The result of this is, on occasion, a queer person attempting to convey the grittier aspects of their experience using rather creative alternatives. Again, Lily could choose almost any other euphemism, and it would probably read better. Transphobes are hyper-vigilant when attempting to find reasons to correlate a trans person with child predation, and the use of euphemisms that would sound appealing to children provides these people with a sort of kindling to stoke the flames of their suspicion. Do I think that Lily's equation of human genitalia with things like cake pops and donuts is indicative of a predatory undercurrent in her content? No. I say through gritted teeth, terrified of what may await me in the future. I mean, I don't want to believe that. I have no reason to. She's weird, sure, and she dresses like a toddler in half of her content, but you'd have to be a bona fide schizo to seriously believe that Lily's content is somehow meant to subconsciously appeal to children. I mean, she's one of the most boring speakers I've ever heard, just because she dresses like a kindergarten teacher with her own princess costume chest while discussing her orchiectomy at Disney World in front of... God fucking damn it, Lily. Chapter 3. You aren't making this easy, Lily. Okay. I didn't want to talk about this clip. Seriously, I wish I could just not. I wish it didn't exist. But in my quest to understand Lily and perhaps empathize with her more as a fellow trans woman, and not just jump on the, she's cringe, so she's a bad tran bandwagon, I came across this clip.
I'm gonna get banned from Disney. I swear, we're about to get banned from Disney. Last summer, I got my cake pops removed, and the plan up until recently was to get my marshmallow wand reconfigured into a marshmallow tunnel. Unfortunately, a few weeks ago, I noticed some hair regrowth on my marshmallow wand. That's bad, because the outside of the wand is what becomes the inside of the tunnel, so you don't want hair growing there, or else it's very uncomfortable. So I talked to my surgeon, and he said that it would be best to postpone the procedure until after hair removal is complete. This is obviously disappointing, because I was really excited to have a marshmallow tunnel sooner. That being said, it is still happening, we're just not sure when it's happening. Hair removal is a fickle thing, and it's really hard to predict.
It's not like she's hiding this, it's on her TikTok for anyone to watch. She doesn't seem to recognize how deeply inappropriate this video is. Look, I get it. She's speaking under the veil of metaphor. No 3-year-old is going to hear her talking about getting her cake pops removed and understand that she's talking about anything other than dessert items. Even if a child did overhear a non-gory discussion of trans surgeries with absolutely no metaphors involved, it really wouldn't harm them. They still wouldn't understand. I mean, when I was 9, I thought the word condom meant the masculine and feminine symbols used in things like Pokemon to denote reproductive configuration. But, no, that wasn't just me being dumb or whatever, that's what my dad told me. Because he too was trying to protect me from knowing about sex before I reached maturity. It's sort of fucked when you think about how this constant need for euphemism leads impressionable kids to awkward, embarrassing, and potentially dangerous misconceptions. But once more, I'm getting off track. I digress. The video we just saw was not a good look sweaty. Even if she wasn't doing anything directly harmful, it still has a rancid vibe attached to it. She is sitting at Disney World within earshot of babbling toddlers, looking like a character from the big comfy couch, talking about getting her balls removed. through euphemism, don't get me wrong, but it just feels like a really weird place to both have and film that discussion. It makes me uncomfy, and if I consider being a parent who just brought my child to Disney World, I probably don't want to listen to Discount Raggedy Ann discuss her orchiectomy. Future Kagra again. Looking back at this section of the video, I finally have the words to express why exactly I felt so icky about this. For everything I say, you would think that I wouldn't think this is a big deal, but I do still. And the reason I do is because discussing such a subject at Disney World is like a breach of the social contract in a way that indicates a lack of regard for the people around you on a very unsettling level. And we'll see this lack of regard for others on full display in part 2 of my LILLY CONTINO double feature. Lily doesn't make it easy for us to defend her. I mean, in a world where even those with marginal latent transphobia are primed to view us as potential predators, how do you look at that video and say with your full chest, there is nothing wrong here? I know that trans people don't owe cis people the whole model minority bit, but you can't just code your videos with everything you possibly can to inflame their suspicions and expect me to stand by your side and go, nah, that's my girl. I can't sit here and in good conscience tell you that I don't have this awkward, dreadful feeling in my gut when I think about defending her, even when it's the worst people in society who are most aggressively coming at her. The things she does to embarrass restaurant staff and encourage harassment from her audience to the establishments she posts from makes me legitimately angry. I've worked food service before. The people working those jobs need them to survive. And I'm just not of the opinion that even actual transphobes, who aren't, going out of their way to just be as fucking horrible as possible on shift, deserve to lose their minimum wage job because they had a slip of the tongue or they're just kind of, stupid. She knows she has this huge platform, and she makes it easy for her audience to know exactly how to find and harass those workers who maybe don't always realize they did something wrong. She dresses in extremely gaudy, childish outfits and puts her hair into pigtails while discussing her genitals using sweet treats as visual props. She's so willing to have these big public confrontations with people who misgender her on purpose or otherwise. She does so much to encourage the hate against her, and I genuinely don't know how much of it is just from some form of neurodivergence leading her to not understand the obvious red flag she's waving around, and how much of it is a calculated and cynical bid for attention. Worst, I haven't come out of this research process feeling confident that she's just a decent, normal person who's maliciously misinterpreted by bigots. If it was just one or two things, then I could excuse it. But she does so much that just makes my skin crawl, and I hate it. I hate feeling like this about another trans woman. It's uncomfortable and weird and makes me have to introspect in ways that I don't want to. I think it's important that I do, and that's, part of what this video is about at this point, but I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of this, and I'm not proud of her. I don't want to look uncharitably upon this woman who, let's be clear, faces extreme and aggressive hate and death threats on a daily basis. I have a very thick skin, but when I see the sheer magnitude of heinous shit that people say to her, and the depths of the cruelty that they will stoop to, I can't help but wonder if that would get to me. I wonder, how does she handle it? Is it like psychological trauma from being so widely hated that's left her numb to the concept of inflaming that very hatred? Was this always part of her character? Is there so much else going on here that I'm not privy to? I don't know. I have a lot of questions like this, and maybe in the dozens of hours of uncut live stream content she posts on her YouTube channel, I might find some answers, but I don't think I can bring myself to try. I don't know that I can look behind that curtain right now. At the very least, not right now. Conclusion. My part in this ecosystem. I don't want to be one of the good ones. I don't want to be some show pony that transphobes can trot out every time they need to have a tran on their side for the sake of an argument or justifying whatever hatred they're spewing about us. I don't want to be that edgy trans girl who you can watch when you want to feel vindicated in your irrational hatred of those like me. Blair White already exists, and one of her is more than enough for this world. Still, I don't want to hedge my bets on the virtue of a person who sets off so many of my alarm bells. I'm left in this awkward, claustrophobic space between disdain, empathy, guilt, and dread. I hold a great deal of disdain for Lily. Some rational, some irrational, and probably motivated by internalized transphobia. I hate that she makes it so easy for people to dislike her. I hate that she's sometimes rude to waitstaff and posts it online for clout and sympathy points. I hate that she fits into bigots' idea of a professional victim so seamlessly. I hate that she expresses her pain at being misgendered so openly in a space where bigots will see it. I hate that she has this weird, uncomfortable relationship with childish aesthetics, and I hate that she so openly mixes this aesthetic with discussions of subjects deemed by many as sexual. I feel sorry for her. I feel sorry that she's constantly told that she's not who she is. I feel sorry that she goes out in public now and gets harassed by teens who clearly sought her out for the purpose of inflicting misery for clout. I empathize with her struggle to find herself in a world that expected her to be someone she wasn't, especially given that she started this journey so well into adulthood. I empathize with just wanting to exist without the constant fear of harassment and violence from malicious actors or hurtful encounters with well-meaning strangers. I feel guilty for thinking in the back of my mind that maybe if she just did X, Y, or Z part of someone else's transition, or if she expressed herself in a more reserved way, that she might be better off and this might not be an issue for her. And I feel dread. I feel dread because in my admittedly incomplete research, despite all of the requests for understanding and empathy directed toward her and people like her from her, I can't recall seeing any instances where she expressed empathy in her content to someone unlike her. And I mean real empathy, not empathy in the sort of vindictively motivated, I want these kids' parents to see because then they can learn and it can be a teachable moment or whatever. You know, where what she really wants is for them to get in shit and to be knocked down a peg. I haven't seen in her popular content anything that makes me think that she cares about people who are different from her. And that, more than anything else, makes me question the type of person she is. Is she a woman in pain, struggling with how to navigate online infamy while trying to maintain her career as an influencer? Or is she a narcissistic grifter who leverages the one relatable thing about herself, her trans status, to cultivate a charitable public image in the eyes of those who would pay her bills? After everything I've seen, I can't honestly say my gut is leading me toward the charitable conclusion, even if I'm not so willing to follow the transphobes in their worst assumptions of who she is. None of us know Lily. None of us are frankly entitled to. Like with any influencer, we can only know what she chooses to show us. Her content is pretty limited in its scope, all things considered. We know her journey from the trans timeline videos that she frequently posts. We know her struggles to exist comfortably in public spaces, and we know the types of behavior she deems acceptable for herself to publicly engage in. I do want to be clear, though. I don't have any reason to believe that she's a nefarious person, just a selfish one. And for all the talk of professional victimhood, I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't acknowledge directly that she is a victim of other people's cruelty. Lily is like the litmus test for trans acceptability. She's cringy and boring and kind of a weird jerk sometimes. She built her platform on the back of her trans status, and it's inarguably the reason that most people watch her content. This means that, in the sense of her public persona, she's, quote-unquote, made being trans her whole identity, whether intentionally or not. These, and all the other things we spoke about today, are the things that force the masks of transphobes to slip, as her inherent unlikability makes her an easy target for public ridicule, and by extension, for transphobic harassment. Please don't send hate to this woman. I may have my issues with her behavior, and maybe you do too. But even good faith criticisms would be a moot point. With the non-stop deluge of hate she receives, your super intelligent, nuanced critique of her actions will be just another rock hurled at her. Unless something truly nefarious comes out about her, and the evidence behind it is substantial, I have no ill will toward Lily. I just don't like her. Anyway, here's a picture of one of the worst merch designs I've ever seen, courtesy of her shop. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please consider liking and commenting your thoughts about Lily. Maybe I missed something important that you want me to check out, or maybe you think that I afforded her the wrong amount of charitability. Either way, I appreciate your time more than I can express. Special thanks to my current only Patreon supporter, John, aka Punish Joe. I really appreciate your support, John. Let's find out what's really going on with Lily Contino. This is so gross. He apologized, and yet you're still gonna pursue this?
Can you not?
Lily, some people have actual jobs. It seems like she wants someone to just take over this for her. All she wants is to eat on camera and make server life hell. So you're not the main character of the universe, Lily.